Is 3:36, and I will be calling the meeting of the Facilities and Safety Committee to order. Are there any public comments for agenda topics?
No, Chairperson, there are no public comments for the agenda.
Thank you. Mr. Hymas is not able to join the meeting this afternoon, so I will be chairing today's committee meeting. Our first item is an update on solicitations for requests for qualifications for engineering services. Mr. Tapia.
Worked a while ago. One's not working. It worked a second ago. Anyway, what this item is that we're going to be doing some requests for qualifications for engineering services. About 2 years ago, we updated the RFQs for architectural services, so we picked 5 firms in the ranked order. The highest one is the one that we give the work to, and then that's the more we get more work, we move down the line, so we can have options to hire different professional services. But we didn't do the engineering ones, and the last time we did it was 9 years ago. That's pretty much when we started TRE, so it's time to renew. Usually we should do it every 5 to 7 years. With the COVID thing, it's kind of threw us off a little bit, so it's time to renew it. And this is going to be for MEP engineers, which are mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers, your civil engineers, and geotechnical materials testing engineers. Good work now. So if you look in your packet on page 5, the form that we're using, we're going to be getting ready to advertise in the newspaper. So in case anybody asks you any questions or calls you about what this is about, we're going to be ranking it as per the same format that we used for the architects a couple of years ago. And if you look at that format there, it's based on the number of years of business. If you're 1 to 5, you get 1 point. 6 to 12, 2 points. More than 12 years, 3 points. And then we have a weight factor. We'll multiply it times 1, so that one doesn't change much. But like on the firm's experience in design and completion of projects, again, if you have 1 to 5 years, 6 to 12, 12 more, it's 1, 2, or 3 points, and then whichever one you get, it's got a weight of 3, so it will multiply it times 3 to get that score. Location of the firms to HISD, we give more weights to Harlingen local architect firms or engineering firms. If you're still in the valley but outside the Harlingen area, it's 4 points. Within 250 miles but outside of the RGV, it's 3 points. And outside of from Corpus, San Antonio, Laredo, and north, it'd be 2 points. It also has a weight of 3. Financial information would be 1 to 5 points. Company's approach to planning, organizing, and managing the project is 1 to 5 points with a weight of 2 times. And then references, we have we get 3 references on other owners, like other districts. You can get the max points times 2. And also, in addition to that, we add to that same column, if you've worked with us and have a very good a record of working with us and doing a very good job, you can get an additional 2 points. If you've done so-so, you could get 1 point, maybe 0 points. But if we have issues with the firm, then we can give you a negative points times 2, so that would give the ones that have never worked with us a chance to jump over them. So that's how we have structured this. I know there's been some questions in the past. We did make some changes to the ranking that we have for contractors, but that's for procurement, for construction services, which is very different from this one. And we have updated that one. But this is professional services, and this does not require any pricing to be submitted. No cost. It's strictly on their qualifications. Once we select a project and we match them up with a firm, then we negotiate a fee that's acceptable. I work with our CFO, sometimes our superintendent, we agree on a fee, then we'll work with our attorneys to get a contract going. So this is the process we're going to be doing here soon, so I just wanted to share with the board in case there's any questions, any feedback, any recommendations, please let me know.
So I know you mentioned differences with regards to the other ranking criteria for other vendors and selection of other contractors, et cetera. Can you though explain? Well, first of all, do you like this? I mean, you're okay with this? Where it is? I mean, you think it is there as far as everything? And the reason I ask is I'm just kind of curious, and you have a ton of experience in this, and I respect your opinion greatly, but I'm just curious, would it be appropriate to maybe have a little tiny bit more weight for the number of years in business? Because there's a lot of fly-by-night deals, and then they're in and out of business in 5 or 7 years versus others that have been around for a lot longer and have sustainability. And the other two categories, perhaps, the company's approach to planning, organization, and managing the project, and references. I mean, I've always thought that references, and you mentioned that as well, they give extra points when it references us, because we have our own experience for sure, but just curiosity about those 3 criteria, and maybe adjusting it slightly, but if there's no need, there's no need. I'm just kind of curious of your answer to this.
Yes, the first time I started working with this document, it was a little different. It was a little bit more detailed, and I didn't like some of the items that were on there. So I worked with staff back then to make the changes to when we did this, and kind of shortened it up a little bit. But yeah, I think that the number of years of business, I think going to 2 times would be appropriate, because there's very little difference between a 1, 2, and a 3 point. So yeah, I definitely, that's why I wanted to share it with you. But before I made any changes or recommended any changes, I wanted to share that with the board. But that is one of them. The other one I had a question on was financial information. Unlike contractors have, we require audited or reviewed audits, and they get points based on the liquidity ratios, asset to liability ratios, things like that. Architects, it's kind of hard to get those. The last time we did it, especially for some of these engineers, we'd only have 1 or 2 firms submit them, and the other ones didn't submit them at all, because they're not used to doing that. So I didn't want to penalize the firms that didn't submit anything, but at the same time, I think it's important to know that we're dealing with a financially sound firm. So that one I could probably recommend ×2 as well.
Also ×2. And then on any other areas that you see, just keep going. I like what you're thinking.
And the other one, the company's approach to planning, organization, managing, basically it's a narrative. It's like a 3-4 page paragraph of them reading what they do, how they do.
Not going to add much.
But of course, they're always going to put what their desires are to do versus what they actually do. So that one I don't give as much weight, because we kind of know the firms and we call references.
Get that from ChatGPT anyways.
Right. They also they do all this great stuff, but we know that didn't quite meet the mark. But so yeah, so I don't think that one. I think it's too tiny is appropriate. References is the one that there were some companies that felt that, well, if we've never worked with you, we're at a disadvantage. How can we ever get our foot in the door? So this one was a little tricky, but at the same time, if we've worked with you and we know we have a good relationship, then their argument is, well, why are you going to go bring somebody in from San Antonio Corpus if you know we do a great job for you? So we try to give the local people a little bit more weight. So that's why we have the combination of 1 for references from other owners, and then if you work with us, we'll add that point as well, ×2. So if you get a 3, ×2 is 6, plus if you get another 2, ×2 would be 4, so you can get 10 points max.
So you feel like that's sufficient?
Yeah, I think so. It's different from the one I used to work where I worked before. It was just based on a 1 to 5 system with a weight, and every district kind of does it a little bit different. Some are very simplified, some are very elaborate and complex.
So correct me if I'm wrong, okay, this is discussion today. At some point, this is going to make its way to the regular board meeting, and we're going to take action to approve. Is that correct?
Yes. Once we finalize this ranking sheet, business office. I don't know if it's from here, but
so today you're just looking for feedback.
Yes, and then we'll advertise it. We'll get the RFQs in. We'll rank it, and then we'll take them to the board with the recommendations of the firms that we select, and then the board has to approve it.
So I mean, I support those 2 changes that you made. The number of years in business, just up it for 2 times weight, and the same thing for the financial information. And I think that then anyways, I think that would be good. I don't know if anybody else has any other input or suggested changes.
So this is an action item for next week's meeting?
No, this is just to get us started with the advertising part of it, the procurement process, just to get it started. But before we did that, we wanted to make sure everybody was okay with the ranking.
So we don't have to approve this?
No, this is just strictly information.
So
The action item will actually come after the full process of the.
But with today's discussion, you have enough for what you need to make
Yes,
some changes
to proceed.
on the weights to proceed?
That's correct.
One question here, on the financial information, possible points 1 to 5, maybe you covered this and I missed it, but, so how do you, is that subjective based on their financial strength? Or, I mean,
It is, but we look at the asset to liability ratio, the liquidity of the firm, the capital.
but are there guidelines, Oscar, that when they fit into a certain category, they get so many points? That you have like a subcategory here? Because that's important.
Yeah, no, but I work with the business office, I would work with our previous CFO and the current CFO, and they would work with me to guide me to say, this firm is stronger than this firm, this one's not doing too well, this one has stronger financials, and then we say, well, it's average, we'll give them a 3, they're above average 4, excellent 5, the lower ones, we give them 0. Some, if they don't send anything, they're gonna get a 0. So
Thank you.
that's how we do it, and then it'll have a weight times 2.
Oscar, a question on
Yes.
designated engineer to Arlington. What do you mean by that? Like a giant firm, if they appoint an engineer just for this project? Or is that, how am I to understand that? Right in the middle.
Location, yes. Some companies will have their office here in Harlingen, and that's their main office, and that's the only office they have. Others may have a firm in Corpus, or Laredo, or McAllen, but they have a sub-office here. But sometimes they don't have a licensed architect here, they'll have a intern or a construction manager with the secretary, but they don't have authority to sign these because they're not licensed architects, so they'll get less points than if somebody has an office here, if they have a McAllen office, but they have an office here with a licensed architect or engineer, then they will get full points as a local.
And so in that example, if they got 5 points, that the weight would be times 3, so they'd receive a 15 for that box?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Now, this does kind of handicap firms from San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, but there are plenty of engineers here in the valley and South Corpus and San Antonio that can do the service for us. And when you do hire those ones from way out of town, they also want to charge hotel and meals and per diem, all these extra charges, so bring it out to our benefit.
So you
Unless
can
it's a really
receive-
big project.
You can receive 30 points for having an office in Arlington and having an engineer certified. That's half, it's more than half. When you add it all up.
Yes, that's a big one. So is it weight of 3 too much, or we make it 2, or it's just that was the direction we had back
I think
when we last did it.
I think it's a good point, because you start adding up and you're counting the same thing, location matters more than anything else, and so I'm wondering if the location firm nearest to HCISD kind of thing, if that's just, 1.5 times, because it's already sort of staggered 5, 4, 3, 2, versus that, and maybe you do 1.5 times, because, then when you get to references, and we haven't worked with this before, and then it's like you're penalizing somebody from San Antonio for the same issue that we're just not here.
That's a very good point. I
So,
think we can do that.
I don't know how others feel about it, but I think maybe 3 times the location might be a little much. And, because already, we're gonna more than likely have experience with somebody local anyway and have better references.
Right.
Points there.
And the reason we did that is, like I said, when I first started here, when the bond issued, the way it was structured, the firms from Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, they actually had the advantage over local firms. So when we did the recommendations, they were all northern firms, and there was somebody from the valley, and of course, people didn't like that, so we kind of went the other way, but maybe a little too much. So I think that's a good medium.
Well, and some of these firms, they get around it because they have other areas, we've been around for 40 years, so they have other ways where they can have higher weights. We just don't want to be in a scenario where their only way in is if they just underbid everybody else. I mean, this is maybe not that type of situation.
Right.
With this type of services, but we've seen that in other types of situations where someone's just trying to get in by just underbidding everybody else, and I don't know if that's
You don't get the best
the
policy.
right type, that's the right way to start a new relationship with a vendor or a
Right.
company. So,
That's a good, a happy medium, I think, 1.5. Any other comments?
get questions about that, so we'll do the final one in our admin, I think.
And I think too, when we look at approving, when someone submits, right, then we'll have a better understanding of
Exactly.
how they were ranked.
Right.
And what went into that.
And that was really the purpose of bringing it, because sometimes there's questions when we bring that forward for an action item. There's questions about like, how did we get here? This is the thought process behind how we get to that action item.
Okay.
So when are you looking at, I'm sorry, you said about putting this out?
I'll get this over to purchasing, and there's a little package they're putting together, and they'll look at the next advertising dates. Here in the next week or two, we'll start advertising it. It has to advertise twice. So we'll probably be bringing this back to February, if not the March board meeting for selection. And it's not like we have a lot of we don't have a lot of projects right now, but since it's 9 years old, we really need to get this a little bit refreshed.
Moving on to the next item, Oscar, you're up again, presentation on annual electrical utility report for the 23-24 school year.
Madam Chair, Monreal, members of the committee, Dr. Bertan. This particular item, I'm bringing forth the energy report, the annual energy report for last year. This is from September of 2023 to August 2024. And it takes a while, a few months to get all the bills in from when we end in August. Some of them trickle a couple of months, and then we have to get all the data together. The one that really works on this full-time is Joel Cruz, our energy manager, puts this together for us. And so we usually bring this around this time. But you can see from the energy report, the 2021-22 is the red graph, and then 2022-2023 is the green graph, and this past year was the yellow graph. So you can see how the first month was a little bit higher in September, and then from there you started seeing decreases all the way through. And when we get all the way to August, we went from 43.7 kilowatt hours to 42.6 kilowatt hours, for about a 3% reduction in consumption of electrical power. And similarly, if you go to the next slide, that's measuring in kilowatt hours. It's kind of like when you buy water, how many gallons did you use? Gallons of water. So the next one shows you how much did you actually pay, how much was the cost. And we have the previous one is a little bit hard to see there, the numbers, but for example, in September this past year, we spent $380,515 for the month of September for all our schools. And then it gives you a monthly cost all the way through. You can see how in September it starts off high. You can go back in the graph. And then as we get into the month, the temperature gets cooler, the prices start going down. Even if we don't have much of a winter, so we don't have much of a peak in winter, just a little bit, depending on how many cold fronts. And then as we get into March, April, May, it starts getting hot and our usage goes up again. And then summer hits, summer school, and it goes down again. And then, so you can see the patterns. The yellow, we started off a little high, and then we caught up and went below. And the reason for that is we had a lot of construction going on with our ACs. We had new controls, and a lot of those got finished throughout the year. So by the time we implemented them all by October, November, a lot of them have been finished, so you can start seeing the efficiency, including new roofs, which have new insulation, provides you energy savings. Also, our window film project that we did for the strengthening the windows for compact resistance were tinted, so that also brought us some energy savings. So
This occurs around June, July, and August. That's when you see a drop.
that's summer schools, because our schools are not loaded
They're
with
not being
kids.
used as much.
Right.
So where did you see the change because of the tent and the other items?
The air conditioning upgrades that we did, the energy control, digital control systems that help regulate.
They go into effect last year.
We had several schools, and it was throughout the entire year. We'd have, every month, we'd have 1 or 2 new schools added on. And if you look at the next chart, that'll break it down by, historically by year, from 2011 all the way to 2023. Keep going, forward. We're going backwards.
Down one.
That one. You can see how our square footage area increased from 2.5 million to almost 3 million because of the building additions we did during the bond program and some other projects we did. square footage increase. So if you look at the kilowatt hour per square foot, we've gone from 16 back 10 years ago, all the way down to $14.55 per square foot. And our cost has gone from $1.54 all the way down to $1.23. So you can see the efficiency and improvement of cost per square foot, regardless of how big our district is or how small. So that's a very good improvement, and we're targeting 110 is where we really would like to be. What helps us is that right now we have a bid with Reliant at 3.5 cents that we did for an 8-year contract. We're about 4.5 years into it. So we're writing a very good, cheap rate. Right now, we were to renew right now, it'd be anywhere between 6.5 to 7 cents. So that would double our energy budget. So we go from 4 million to 8 million. So we're hoping in 3.5 years, the prices come down. So that's just something that I talked to Dr. Patani, forecast and prepare ourselves for the future.
I remember when we did that we were hesitant to do it, but boy, it was a great decision.
We locked in the right time, right before
We were concerned
COVID.
it was gonna go down.
A year before COVID, so it was a great move for us. So I think we're doing overall pretty good on the electrical usage. Any questions on this report? And then I just have a couple of slides there. We break it down by school. We see what each school is doing. Are there any anomalies, any errors in the billing, things like that? And again, Hoyle does a great job of monitoring and preparing all these graphs. Just to show you the kilowatt hour usage and the cost per school.
Oscar, is Harlingen High School so high because it's the way it's constructed, the wings, and they're not all over one roof like south?
The usage at Harlingen High started off high in 2021, and you can see how it's come down on the usage because we did the air conditioning improvements, we did new digital controls, and we re-roofed wings 1 through 8, which basically didn't have any air conditioning, any insulation properties. So all of that, including starting from September, this next coming year, I anticipate overall we're going to have about a 3 to 4% decrease again, with all the improvements and the efficiencies we did with the stimulus money that paid for all those improvements. Any questions on the energy report? Now we'll move on to the grant and federally funded projects. Now we have 2 of them. One is the new amphitheater that we're doing here at Lee Means, and we walked in and saw the construction. That's what we're doing. We're about 57%.
Oscar, I'm sorry, you're going fast. I'm still looking at PCHS, the usage, and it's just nothing. Is that because the building's green, or did it achieve some kind of certificate of efficiency?
Yes,
It's amazing.
early college high school did get a energy award for very low cost savings on the design.
That's fantastic. I mean, it's
Lower than
nothing. Let's do that. Thank you.
I was wondering why health professions all of a sudden spiked.
Well, it has to do with the enrollment. We're seeing more increase in enrollment at School of Health Professions. And then when we have all the activities after school, we have to turn on the AC longer. There's other things going on at school. So we need to use early college high school.
Right.
facilities.
Yeah, saves the money.
So, any other questions? If not, on the amphitheater, we're about 57% complete. I'll show you some pictures here in a minute to show you what's been done. And then the other one, that's a must-funded project, and then the TEA safety funded project, we're working on the bidirectional amplifiers, which is the emergency responders communication systems. We're about 30% complete. And on that one, we've already got pre-wired 14 schools, and we're installing antennas. And then we're over at Travis and Harlingen High installing those antennas as well. So we're waiting for the equipment to come in, which are kind of like your routers, your boosters that amplify the signals throughout the school to eliminate any dead spots for law enforcement. That'll be the big cost when all that equipment comes in, but we're doing all the pre-wiring and antennas right now. So we're about 30% complete. Any questions on any of these 2 projects? Okay, we'll move on to the photos. I told you about the Lee beams. They poured the slabs, they got the seals going up. On the little restroom, they got the CMU block wall up. They already got the roof metal panels. On the picture on the right, the chiller lines were routed up and around on top so that we could do a door opening. There used to be a window there with the chiller lines in the bottom. But this is a new entry next slide just shows little up close details of the restroom building and the drainage infrastructure for the storm drain that we're installing. We also have the utilities for the restroom, the plumbing, the water, the sewers, it's been inspected by the city and was approved. So it's coming along pretty good. Any questions on that project? Move on to the TRE funded projects. We have the doors and windows project. We did have some doors that came in over the break at Arlington South and at San Houston, some door frames and new windows that were installed. And 65% overall on that project. On the South Gym lockers, HVAC upgrades, the units, we had thought they were gonna come in the break, they didn't, but now January 16th is the new delivery date. And we're about 50% complete. They've already done some structural support work underneath, getting ready to just remove and put in the new one, so that should happen here pretty quick in January and February. The new marquees, we completed, Lamar and Bowie, they're already up. I'll show you a picture. And the next one they're gonna go to is Bonham. Lamar and Bowie are up, Bonham will be the next one. And on the chiller line replacement, we're about 50% complete. We finished the upstairs and we moved downstairs, so I'll just show you the next slide, the pictures. That's part of the south. We've installed the new door frames. The good thing about these door frames, we'll be able to run the wires for the hard swipe system and the electrical for the electric strikes, so that we can now control those doors through hard swipe. Right now it's controlled on the gate at south before you enter the property. Now they'll be able to install that on the actual doors themselves. On the previous system, previous system was too thin and we couldn't get anything in there. So that's a good thing about that, and they're high impact resistant glass as well.
Oscar, who does those and who installs them?
This was being done by 3M.
Are they here in the valley or do they come in from the valley?
The doors and windows is being done by Noble, Texas, but the window, the safety film project we have, that's being done by 3M Safety Glass. They're out of San Antonio. But these doors and windows, these new ones are being done by Noble, and they're already treated. We don't have to put anything on them. They're already come with that. The only thing is the frames come in, but some of the glass, there's some with plywood, and that glass is, in the next week or two should be in, but the doors are functional and usable. If you go to the next picture, you have some of the windows at San Houston. These are new windows that just need to do some caulking on it. And again, the tint will give us some, and they're energy efficient windows as well, so this should also improve the energy efficiency of that school. And then the marquees, like I told you, Lamar and Bowie are up. Now we're gonna be going to Bonham. So we're about 35% on that. And the last picture is the upstairs is completed and the chiller line replacement. So we're down in the bottom. We've already kind of started prepping the top, putting coverage on the floor so we don't damage it. And so all we need now is for Dahlia and her staff to move out. We're kicking them out.
Remember hot mics.
So that's, you can see the next picture, how the shape of the chiller lines that we're replacing, they're really rusted, really bad, and we need to have a burst. The AC system was shut down, and it'd be very hard to repair it and to find somewhere we can install shutoffs, because there are very few shutoffs, and the ones that we do have are all rusted out. So it's kind of very urgent to get this done. So any questions on this project? And the last one I have is Bonham. We didn't put this on the last agenda, but we're gonna move it forward for next week to put it on the agenda. The Bonham playground area, we rebid that out to do brand new construction. We had a budget of $138,000. We only had one bidder, and it came in, you can see the bid came in at 126 or 120, which is a different, the cross section gets a little thinner, but you use the field grade option, which is very good. They use that in street construction. So for $120,139, we're gonna recommend that and put it next week on your agenda for approval. so we can get that playground going for the kids. Any questions on that? And that just shows the location of where the old one used to be. And finally, we have two payments that are gonna go on the board agenda next week. And these are both ESSER-funded projects that we've already completed. So the RGO roofing and construction that we did at Harlingen High School for the roofing and doors and windows, contract was $5.2 million. We paid $4.9 million, so it's $260,131 will be the final payment. Zero out that project. Everything's been done. The punches have been completed. All the closeout documents have been received by our office. So we will recommend final payment required for approval so we can close that project out. And the other one is emergent contracting. It's the other re-roofing that we did for $1,050,000. We paid $1,049,000. So we're going to be wind up paying after we've already paid $990. I'm sorry, there's a credit of $966. That's the only thing we didn't use. So from $1,050,000, we're going down to $1,049,000. We've already paid $993,000. So there's a balance of $55,586. So these two payments will be on the agenda next week for approval. That closes these projects out. And that is the end of my presentation. Any other questions? If not, we can move on to the financial report.
Any questions? We'll move on to construction funds and other projects, financial report, item 3.
Good afternoon, Dr. Mulligan, board members, interested attendants, senior team, and members of the audience. So this is just a quick synopsis of what we have currently encumbered in our budget for this fiscal year. We have Gillini Amphitheater that is currently being constructed, and that is funded out of Fund 485, which is our Ellen Musk Foundation grant. And so encumbered was $1.2 million originally. Year-to-date payments for this fiscal year, $490,000, and we have a remaining balance as of December 31st of $765,000 for that project right there. And then we have some other various maintenance and remaining HVAC projects funded out of TRE, as Mr. Bobby just mentioned. Currently encumbered for this fiscal year was $6.7 million. The year-to-date payments, $4.1 million, and our remaining balance is $2.6 million. So a total of $3.4 million is what we have encumbered right now in our books for this fiscal year. Any questions? Pretty good.
Question on the Musk Foundation.
Yes, sir.
Will we expend all those funds on this project, or will there be anything left over?
No, 100% will be applied to that.
We actually added some TRE funds to help
Complete that project.
complete that for the restroom building we have at outside, because the Musk money was totally expensive.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I like the report, very simple, precise, and understandable. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now I'll go ahead and officially close the Facilities and Safety Committee meeting, and I'll hand it over to Dr. Bettis to transition to our transfer from teaching and learning committee.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and open the Transfer and Teaching and Learning Committee meeting at this time. It's for 11 p.m. Do we have any public comments or agenda topics?
No.
All right, we'll just jump right in. The first topic, I guess, Jennifer, Mama, you guys take this one. So we're going to just jump right into modeling excellence, an innovative approach to teacher development.
I'm not good with staying at one spot, so, I can go. Perfect, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So to be formal, Dr. Perez, our board members, Dr. Hortan, our senior team, audience, and guests, we're going to talk about modeling excellence. And this is something that I'm extremely proud of and super excited to showcase with you today. We're going to talk about, I'm going to take you on a little history. So in our district, we have had the Step Up program. We have been a part of Step Up since back in 2016, which really began with a conversation. We sat down with UTRGV, Dr. Cortan, a few of our board members, different individuals that came together, sat also with UTRGV and some of their leadership team. And we said, what can we do to really strengthen teacher capacity in our district? How can we continue to learn and grow? And how can we continue to better prep our classrooms so that every teacher that's standing at the front of that classroom is successful and ready to begin on day one? So with that process began the Step Up program. And with Step Up program, what we were able to do is to get that off and running. We capitalized on using Means Elementary, which is why we're here today. And when we used Means Elementary, we knew that that program was ready, and it is now turned over. So we actually have moved our Step Up program now to Bonham Elementary, and this year it's actually expanded to Memorial Middle School, and we have a couple of teachers that are actually at South, Harlingen High School South. But I take us back to that because that really began a legacy of success for us in all of the pipeline work that has happened here in HCISD. So from there, we continued and had an opportunity to expand our partnership with UTRGV with the teacher residency program. When we began teacher residency, that started in addition to UTRGV with an outside partner called US Prep, who really works to build educators in the field. They help us with strategic staffing partnerships. I have to give a huge shout out to a very unknown, unsung hero here in our audience, and that's Alma Rock. So Alma is our grant writer for the district, but if you have not met Alma yet, she's the real superstar behind all of the projects that you see that happen in our district. She's the superstar that makes it all happen. So yes, this teacher residency was grant funded as well, and Alma helped us procure some of the funds for teacher residencies, so thank you for being here. And then also, we had an opportunity again, UTRGV said, I want HCISD, I want to get them in the ballgame. So we started with them on building and expanding from doing a whole year-long student teaching experience to now having a paid residency program. So just like if I was a beginning doctor, I would go out after I graduated and I would start doing rounds because I don't just get released into the field and say good luck, but someone is there as a guide on the side throughout that process. Well, now we have the ability to pay those individuals. So teachers are paid throughout that process. But one of the things that happened is there were several different types of models that we could select from. And I have several committee members here that sat on that original design team. So if you're a committee member, would you just raise your hand? I know Ms. Coggin, you were in the committee for that. Ida, you were on the committee for that. Of course, Mrs. Cortan, Dr. Cortan, myself, and a few others that sat and began to build this with a blank slate. We didn't know what it was going to look like when we finished, but we ended up selecting the release time model. Well, the good news was nobody else was doing that in the Valley, and the bad news was nobody else was doing that in the Valley. So there was no one to call. There was no one to say, hey, what does this look like? Can you help us out? What does that look like? But it was also exciting because that gave us an opportunity to design what that could be. So we were really excited to do that. We absolutely did that in partnership with Ms. Amaras, who is our principal here at Means. I know she's been running around and helping with dismissal, but I want to give her a shout out as well. Because we said there were opportunities to take these residents, put them in a classroom, they would be able to take over, and then once they were able to take the class by themselves, their mentor teacher is able to step out and now go support instructionally somewhere else inside of their campus. Well, you know, at HCISD, we always think we can do things bigger and better. So we said, not only are they going to support inside their campus, but they're going to be able to support and help our entire district. So today we're going to see how we capitalized on that legacy of success so that we could launch this new piece. Whoops, let me go the right way. So maximizing the strength. For us, it was really about saying, how can I utilize that skill set of those mentor teachers beyond, here it means elementary. So it was building capacity beyond that. And there's a little data sleeve. I want to say it's inside the pocket. This has small number data, and Ms. Garcia over here always taught us when you have small number data, you can't publicize it big picture, so you just have it in your little sleeve. And I know that's a little bit difficult to read, but I just want to point out a couple of things at which you're going to look at, and you can peruse that on your own. But when you see all of that blue and green, that means that in the teacher resident classrooms, students performed at or above the campus and or the district. If you notice, in every one of those columns, except for two, the students performed at or above the campus or district. And if you'll note, in several areas, they are 20 and 30% above the campus or district. So these are substantial increases that you see a student has a benefit of being in a teacher residency classroom. We have lots of opinions about why that has to occur, but we want to capitalize on that it does occur. And so the way that we're going to do that is through what we call a demonstration site classroom. That's what we're going to unveil today. So what is a demonstration site classroom? Well, for us, a demonstration site classroom is a place to showcase what is happening all across those classrooms that teacher residents are in. What are the best practices that we see? So when you look at that, we want to say, what's important to us in the district? We know blended learning is a huge piece of value for us here in the district. You guys have seen Dr. Ushka come up here, share a lot of data about the successes there. Also, we have all of the work that's being done in curriculum with HQIM, or the high quality instructional materials. So as we're launching those high quality instructional materials, how do we help aid teachers throughout the district and how to be successful in doing that? And then we have all the work that we know we need to do to support novice teachers. So if you haven't studied some of the data, and I think I've shared with a few of you, it is very, the need is huge in how we're going to need to support new teachers. Currently, the latest data that came out of UT shows us that 55% of classrooms are taught by uncertified teachers, okay? So we know, we live in the valley, that usually takes a couple of years to get here. 55% of classrooms. Right now in our district, that number's not as substantial, but usually it takes a couple years to get down to South Texas, and then we're going to be facing that. So we're trying to be very intentional of how we prep and build our system so we're not faced with such a specific gap in the learning for kids. So as you see the Fundamental 5 and Teach Like a Champion, we do have Ana Rodriguez-Centron back here, who is the champion for all the work with new teachers. And these are two of the big pieces that we use here in our district to help support the work for our new teachers in this space. So this is huge for us. So where do we go from here? I'm going to take you, don't worry, to the room. This is the big unveiling today. But two of the things that we want to do from here is, now that we have the classroom, which you guys will open officially today, we will begin creating a digital library. So the idea is that those high-performing classrooms where you saw the data, 20, 30% greater than some of the other classrooms here in our district, it's capitalizing and recording what's happening in those classrooms and getting that out to all the teachers here in HCISD and making it accessible to them to see, well, I'm just launching HQIM and I'm teaching third grade math for the first time. What does that look like? Or, you know what, I'm a brand new teacher and I just need a classroom management strategy.
What does that look like? So it's allowing us to build our own library of best practices here in our district. And additionally, you know how we talked about, and we opened this up with Step Up, and our need to help to continue to build the pipeline for teachers in our district. Well, it's not stopping. We just got a knock on the door, Dr. Cortan and I, about a month ago maybe, we just got a knock on the door, and it was UTRGV, and they said, we're ready for the next partnership. So we are super excited. Our intention is to bring to the board in February a new opportunity. We will be hopefully bringing an MOU in February. We will be able to expand to a new partnership called Pipeline to Leadership. And really the focus is to expand strategic staffing. How do we continue to build the amazing leaders that we have in our district? So boomers are going to be retired completely, right? Our Gen Xers are the next ones to start going. So how do we continue to build the next man up, right? So that is our big key feature, with about a third of our staff projected to be able to get to that point of retirement in the next 3 to 5 years as we start doing that. We know our new third of teachers are going to be novice teachers. So how do we intentionally get ready for that crew? So as we expand that, we're going to look at different strategic planning opportunities that we can utilize as well, and that is to come. So lots of new information that will be coming for us as well. So the very exciting part is that we are actually going to take a field trip. So grab your cameras, because you might want to take some pictures while you're there, so grab your phones. But we are going to now have a ribbon cutting and an unveiling of the Wolverine Inspiration Network, of course named here after our Wolverines at Means Elementary, otherwise known as the WIN Room, okay? This is a demonstration site classroom, and a huge thank you to Dr. Rushka, because this is powered by blended learning, which has allowed us to help utilize grant funds from both grants to help support this blended learning initiative in our district as well, because we obviously know what an impact it's been having on our students. So I'm going to invite our chair to come and lead the way, and we are going to take a field trip over to our new demonstration site classroom, and we'll come back here for questions and conversation.
No, I got the camera.
Mariska. I'm just very grateful for all the work and effort that has gone into making this a huge success. Ultimately, though, with all the setup, it's really our mentor teachers that are here at Means Elementary that are really going to make the impact for so many different students in our district moving forward. So I want to thank you, and at this time, I'll open it up for any questions and comments or considerations.
Any questions, comments?
I have
Dr.
one
Ryan?
question. I'm really excited about this, and I was just thinking, with the videoing that's happening, and just the amount of time that a video can be, and the many good things, like, oh, that's a good example of X, this is a good example of Y, and et cetera. So even within one video, it occurred to me, and maybe you've already thought about this, that there may need to be some curation of like episodic examples, so that they say, oh, what's a good example of, whatever, a math delivery of a curriculum content, and so watch these 5. So anyway, I was just wondering how, not only that, but then the other piece is like, how can we, again, and you probably already thought about all of this, like institutionalize using those beyond Means, but to other schools and other classrooms. For example, it could be teachers who, maybe we need like some additional support, so we want you to watch these particular videos, or something very different. I'm sure I'm not thinking of any of it that you already have.
So thank you for that comment, because there are lots of things to continue to be unadapted throughout this process. But one of the key reasons that Anna has been so integral in this process is because she works specifically with all of our novice teachers and teachers in need of support in the district. And so we talked about how we identify what the need is to capture so that we can house videos. So we might take a video recording of one lesson, but like you said, we might be able to say, okay, let's capitalize on just how do they use this attention grabber, and it may be a 2-minute clip.
Exactly.
There may be lots of things that we can capitalize off of one lesson that's been recorded. So we're excited about that, and actually, Tanya's there. I'm sorry, Tanya. Just to note that we have talked about as well, how do we already utilize this in our district for all the curriculum pieces moving forward, and what that can look like as well. So the idea is all the successes that happened thus far are amazing, but they're here. The goal of the demonstration type classroom is how do we get that throughout our district.
Well, it's no surprise that you continue to be a trailblazer of these, teacher, preparation and the process of developing teachers. I love how you're just not giving it a chance, right? I mean, it's just the purpose, intentional and purposeful. You've got the right approach, the method, the blended learning. You've got the right materials, right? So HQIM, and then you're putting the right people in the room for mentoring and fostering that development and the best practices and that kind of stuff. And so, I love the snapshot, but obviously data doesn't lie, and it looks like obviously you're on something, and now we just got to continue to hone in on what are those things that are making it work, and come up with even more ideas, as Dr. Ronier suggested, and more ways to even take the mentoring beyond the classroom to even online and others and things like that. But job well done, and continue to be trailblazers. It sounds like you're going to have more and more partnerships with UTRGV, so that's great news. So, any other questions or comments? Again, thank you for your leadership. Dr. John, I don't know if you want to have any comments, but Jennifer, you've been amazing, and your team is just incredible, and keep it up. But this is, I think, the future of teacher development.
She's done an extraordinary job. You always have to have a champion for things like this, and way back when we started Step Up, she's always been the constant, and so thank you for your leadership too. The other things is that we are talking right now today about teacher residency, but the reality is that residency models are starting to become part of our norm. We have 2 resident assistant principals. We're selecting our next cohort, or have selected our next cohort of AP residents. But it has helped tremendously because the preparation gets them better prepared for those roles, and just the level of support that you all have offered and the intentionality. Even with selecting the mentors, it takes a very special person. Yes, you have to be very high performing in your craft, but you also have to have this other side that is willing to give of yourself and to coach the next generation. So excited about that. We are doing a lot with the University of Texas out of Austin as well. So I'd be remiss if I didn't thank them for some of the residency models. But we want to expand that because we want residency as a way to go. And so little by little, we're hoping to expand the number of residents that we can bring into our district, because as you can see with the data, it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. So thank you, you too.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you very much. Lily, with that, you and I talked about topics for future transferring teaching learning committee meetings.
Yeah, so last month, I think I got really excited about having Mrs. Loretta come. She's our head nurse, and I think I said she would come to January, but actually, you saw our topic. So next month, for sure, Mrs. Loretta is coming in. We've done a lot of work in how we prepare for emergencies in our district, and so she's gonna come and just share a little bit of the systems that we've created under her leadership. So we'll listen to her next month.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. We'll formally close that meeting, and then we'll move and open our finance and planning committee meeting at this time. And for time, why don't you take it away with our fiscal planning? And I believe you have some guests here to present.
We do. We have our financial advisors that are going to be joining us here in just a minute. I'm going to invite Ida Ambriz up. She's our interim assistant superintendent for business services. And so on our agenda today, we're going to talk to you a little bit about SHARS, because there has been some impact to funding across the state, not just in our district. We want to give you all an update on where we ended up with that, and certainly share a recommendation for how we're going to close that gap. Secondly, we always look at our monthly levers, so we're going to continue with that as well. The other thing, though, is that as we have looked at all of our fiscal planning for next year, it has already started. But this month, Ida's bringing something to you all. We're looking at a market value study with our HELP program. That's an after-school service that we offer our parents. But we have looked at market value of that, and so we're going to bring that to you. It's just to kind of prep the system and let you know that that's one of the studies that we're doing. And then we're going to come back and talk about budget planning and end our time with this meeting with our financial advisors. So I'm going to hand it over to Ida.
Thank you, Dr. Pecan. Good evening. Now it's evening, it's almost 5 o'clock. We'll start off with our update on SHARS 2017. So, in 2017, our district received reimbursements that were not deemed allowable. This was caused by a change in state policy on SHARS Medicaid that affected all districts statewide. So this is not something that just affected Orange and CISD, but every single Texas school district in Texas. The Office of Inspector General Office had state findings that resulted in a liability of $83,095.40. We just received that letter in mid-December. The district has 3 options to reimburse the Texas Health and Human Services Department. We have option 1, which is to pay in full. Option 2, request current billing reimbursement to be applied to the balance owed until it's fully paid. And then option 3 is to request a payment plan. And our office is recommending that we go with option 2, which is to request the billing reimbursements to be applied to that balance until it's paid in full. And so on average, we receive about $11,000 to maybe $60,000 per week from our SHARS billings. And so that would probably take us about 7 to 8 weeks to have this fully paid off. Any questions on that?
What do we receive in a year typically?
Okay.
What do we receive in a year on SHARS typically?
Lately, it's been about $1.5 million.
Questions,
Yes.
you're saying this is basically happened throughout the state of Texas?
Yes.
Have there been any legal challenges?
Yes, that's a very good question. So when it first came out a couple of years ago, all school districts got together and we did put out challenges. We appealed it. We took it to the court levels, but what's available, unfortunately. Any other questions?
Is there any difference in what we owe if we choose one of the different option, or is it all gonna be $83,095?
That is the amount that was identified for Harlingen ZISD. So every school district has a different amount that they have to pay back. And so we felt pretty comfortable with the $83,000.
But the amount doesn't change, we just have, regardless of the method, the amount doesn't change.
Doesn't change.
You don't get
There's no
discount.
interest in the right.
Paid
Yeah,
for.
there's no interest in the sorry.
What's the, I mean, what's the payment plan look like if there's no interest?
We could take up to 12 months or 24 months to pay that off.
What about 30 years?
30 years. I don't know if we want to do that. I won't be around in 30 years. I don't know that we paid off in full.
Consider if you can get a long payback and with no interest, I mean, why wouldn't we take advantage of that?
We can certainly take a look at that, yes, definitely. We'll look into that and see if that's maybe a better option so that we can still recoup some of our charge bills for this fiscal year. Good idea.
What do you anticipate on request for current billing reimbursements be applied? How long do you anticipate based on current
About 7 to 8 weeks
7 to 8 weeks to pay it back?
to pay it back. Because we earn about $11,000 to $16,000 per week from our charge billing. And so we figured 7 to 8 weeks it would be paid in. But I do like Mr. Liao's recommendation, maybe considering the payment plan.
You don't know how many years that will allow you?
I haven't seen what the maximum amount of months are, so I can definitely reach out to them and find
It's
out.
probably gonna be months. It's probably gonna be months. But how do you get to 1.5 million if you're only doing a couple, 12,000?
Because we have our cost report, and that cost report is kind of like the big tax return that we do at year end. And so we're able to recoup other expenditures in. And so that makes a big difference.
Got it. Awesome. You keep going.
Then influencing factors of fiscal planning, just want to give another current update. Our current enrollment as of December 20th, 16,434 students. Variance is currently at 346 students less from prior years. This is resulting in approximately $2.1 million in current loss of revenue. However, we've already made adjustments to our budget this fiscal year to reflect that $2.1 million deficit. Our attendance, revenue projections are based on a 93% attendance rate, and our current attendance rate is at 93.02. So we are right on the mark as far as our attendance rate. Our goal is 94.5% attendance rate for the year, and we're certain we'll hopefully get that. Maybe the spring, warmer weather, I'll be able to get up to that 94.5% attendance rate. And then the next couple of slides is a topic that we wanted to present to you as part of our fiscal planning. And so our health program is an after-school care program that we have at the district, and we want to propose doing a market value study for fiscal planning for next year's budget. So the health program actually stands for Helping Every Loving Parent. And so this program was started in the 80s. And at that point in time, the daily rate to enroll your student in the health program was $3 per day. And so that was back in the 80s. In 2010, we actually said, you know what, probably time for us to do a little market inflation for that, right? You know, it's been since the 80s, 2010, let's go ahead and move that from $3 to $4 per day. So currently, right now, we have a monthly fee of $70 per student for anyone enrolled in health. Our current enrollment in health right now is 631 students. So in last fiscal year, our health program had a $226,000 loss. And so our expenditures were $660,000, the majority of that being the payroll costs associated with having the health program, right? The paraprofessionals and the teachers that stay after school to monitor our students after school, and so parents are able to come pick up their students. The total revenues collected for last year was $434,000. So that resulted in that $226,000 program loss. Currently, right now, for this fiscal year, as of December 2024, we have a current loss of $58,000. So, in looking at the numbers, we're proposing to conduct a current market value study. I think now is the time, it's been 15 years since the last adjustment, to start taking a look at what do other daycares charge how would parents feel about having an increase from the $70 to something a little bit higher to help offset the payroll costs that we are incurring.
Heidi, can you just briefly tell us a little bit more about the help program? What exactly, tell us where, when the students are here, tell us the.
Okay,
you know,
sure,
Tell us that the help
So
to
the
the
after-school care
families.
program starts at 3 o'clock, right, and it goes up to 6 o'clock. If parents do come in and pick up their students a little late, maybe 6:15, 6:30 is the latest that anybody will stay here with their child. And we have this program at 9 elementary campuses and 1 high school. At South High School, we have a special education, special needs unit. And so there's 4 students in that unit that are requiring this service.
So mostly this is elementary, but it's.
Most are elementary.
And has there been a huge fluctuation in the enrollment? It's a little bit, it's approaching almost 4% of our enrollment. So it's a lot of students, as far as, especially which is elementary, so it's a lot of students there. Because you went from a 226 loss to 58. How did you mitigate the loss? That's a pretty
Well,
big.
December is just reflective of August to December. So last fiscal year was the full from August all the way until May. So that's a full 10-month program. And so right now, if you look at our $58,000 loss at the mid-year point, we're looking at maybe $120,000. Reason being, it might be a little bit less this year in the loss is because I reached out to some of these principals that have the help program and asked them to be really, vigilant on their staffing, right, and making sure that the ratios, should be 15, 20 to 1. As students are being picked up, because some parents may come pick up their child at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and we only have maybe half of the students up until 6 o'clock. So then at that point, they should start releasing staff members, so that way we don't have a high payroll cost.
So you're being a little bit more vigilant with your staffing and
Correct.
things like that.
Yes.
But the enrollment's been pretty consistent, you would say? over
Pretty
the last year?
consistent, yes, yes. Our 3 highest elementary campuses that have the health program, Lee Means, Treasure Hills, and Stewart Elementary.
What was the total last year? Total enrollment?
That's a good question. I did not get that number for you.
Is
should
it
be-
increasing every year?
It stays steady. I can't say that it's increasing every year. I know when COVID hit in 2020, we had to revamp the health program. And we actually had limited spots available because we needed to do the spacing, right, with our students. And then it's kind of risen up since then, since 2020.
So to break even right now, and I realize we probably can't raise the prices that much, what would it take to break even?
And that's gonna be part of the presentation,
Right.
you're gonna come
That's
back with
part
a
of the study.
recommendation,
Mhm.
but I guess his question, and that's a good question, I don't know if your recommendation is gonna be to get us to break even or just to mitigate the loss, but that's a great question.
We're hoping to break even, right? And looking at that, just in the numbers and projections, I mean, we're looking at maybe possibly increasing it up to maybe $30. So it would be $100 per month is what we are initially looking at. However, we still want to take a look at conduct a study, see what kind of discounts we can apply to families that have multiple children.
Are there any funds or grants available for economically disadvantaged families?
For the after-school care program,
Yeah.
none that I have seen, however, we can definitely take a look into that.
I mean, I think from what I've just been hearing other parents talk, I mean, there is still a limitation. I know of parents that are like, oh my gosh, I have to hurry up and sign up for help because there's not gonna
Yes.
be enough
At
spots.
Stewart Elementary, I mean, they're notorious for that.
Yeah.
Back then, there was lines, people actually would camp out there like they were buying, Cardinals football tickets, right? They would line up to go and get their registration for a health program. Then we navigated over to the online platform, and that helped parents. So then parents would I need to make sure by a computer or on my phone, so I can get in at 8 o'clock when it opens up, so I can do my registration. Then we became ticket money at that point. And so that kind of helped alleviate the lines, and it actually was a better process for our parents to get in. We do recommend to our campuses and our principals to have that waiting list, right, available in case that there's more parents interested in the program that they have actual available to them. And the availability is due to maybe lack of space or lack of staff, right? Staff members that maybe are not interested in staying after school till 6 o'clock to watch these children. So at one point, and I can't remember what year it was, we started
I just want to mention a couple of things. This is a service that our parents need, and every year, and she's absolutely right, like the second it opens, everybody knows. We advertise it because it's a service that our parents need. The reason we're doing this market value study is because there's a lot of things that we need to consider, right? There's the need that we have in our organization. There's looking at things like how many families have multiple kids in these programs and what is an increase of X amount going to look like. Is there a need for us to have kind of like a package deal if we have 3 or 4 students? So there's a lot. I don't really want to box us into a recommendation on the price today for that reason. There's a lot of things that we need to consider. And the whole objective with this program is not to have it as a profit. It's really to have a service for our parents, but also to break even. And so all of these different data points that we're looking at, that's specifically what she's going to be doing a deeper dive into. And also knowing how many families are out there that have multiple kids in help, because like I said, even a $15 increase per student can be $45 a month or greater, right? So there's a lot of different things that I've asked her to work with the team on, and what does that look like? And at the end of the day, like I said, it's also a service that we offer our parents. And when we did years ago, when we started looking at what are perks and what are things that would keep our families here, help is one of those programs because they're not able to get there at release time. So I want to make sure that we're stressing that we're going to look at all of that holistically. We wanted to plant the seed though, because this is going to be part of our fiscal planning for the next, for the 25-26 school year. And we'll come back to you on that.
Yes.
Reese, just, can you ask a quick question? Just walk me through the math, just so I can understand it. In 2024, the expenses were $660,000, is that correct?
Yes.
And then take that $660,000 divided by 631 students, that means it's $1,045 per student per year. How many payments would a parent have to make to pay for that? Is it 8, 10, 12?
It's a
Well,
monthly.
currently they're paying $70 for 174 days.
How many times? Oh, based on days?
Actually, no, take it back. So it's $4 per day, so $4 times the 174 days that we're in operation.
Got it.
That comes out to $704.
Got it.
So that's how much a parent's paying.
So
Per
that's,
child.
okay, and that's the difference, 1,045 minus the 704 is the variation. Okay, got it. Thank you.
And really, it's, we're hitting the reset button on all of our systems. And exactly what she said earlier, if we have 200 kids that need help at a campus, and we have staffing for 200 every single day, but we look at trend data and we realize it's not 200 every day, then we really need to come back to the drawing board with that administrator and say, like, what is the real need? But a lot of it, for me, is looking at trend data. I think knowing how many kids are actually in attendance as opposed to how many registered, those are two very different numbers. So that's part of the study.
And I want to just tag on to what you said. It's a great point because it's a great service and a great benefit, but I also think it's something that if we find the right sweet spot, right, where we mitigate the losses, doesn't have to be where we break even, but just mitigate to where we're not, upsetting, the apple cart with our current folks. This is actually something that we might want to grow, only because we can increase enrollment, right? And then you're talking about, that's a huge, that's a huge revenue source. If we can go out there and use this as the recruiting strategy to increase our enrollment, now you're talking about, now you're talking about the smart strategy for growth of our enrollment. And I think so you just have to find that sweet spot.
And the way to get this program open at a campus, right? Because there's 9 elementary campuses currently that have this program and 1 high school. We do have 10 campuses that are being serviced right by the ACE program, completely funded out of the grant. But if another campus wanted to open up a health program, I guess the process has always been, you do a survey with your parents, and so long as there's 10 or more parents that are interested in having that program, then the principal can call in to the central office and say, hey, I would like to have the health program. And so they call our office, and then we talk to them and we navigate the process with them to see how they can get registration set up at their campus. And something else to note, the health program also is a service for our parents and a lot of our teachers. definitely something worth us taking the time to do that deep dive and do that study, the feedback that we need in order to make a good decision on this.
And I'm gonna just say one last thing, and then I'm gonna kind of partner up with Ida on the next slide. But we need to think out of the box. We have residents that are just dying to have opportunities. So what does that look like? What about students that come in to do student teaching? It's really about thinking globally, like how do we strengthen this program? How do we keep the service where we need it to be? But really, we've given the organization permission to think differently about everything. And this is just one of those other systems. The next slide I'm gonna have her forward, and I'm gonna talk big picture about budget season is starting. In the business office, it's starting. The reality is we've been doing budgeting all year long. So a couple of things that I'm just gonna point out here, and then we're gonna listen to our financial advisors. But we are doing zero-based budgeting. We explained that to you all, I believe, last month or the month before. On the slide here, on the right-hand side, you see a little bit of a calendar of events. In a nutshell, big picture. Next Wednesday, we're going to use part of our Harlingen Learning Community time to have breakout sessions with directors and principals. We're gonna walk them through what does it look like to do zero-based budgeting. Ida will take a group, and then she's got her team that will also take some of the small groups with her. They're gonna talk about zero-based budgeting. We're gonna look at trend data with enrollment, look at projections and how you forecast what your enrollment might look like for next year. We'll start there in January. Then we ask them to go back. We're gonna ask our administrators to go back, get feedback from their teams, and come back in February for the second part of the budget workshop. But that's kind of how we're gonna run this, because zero-based budgeting does take a little bit of learning, and so we wanna make sure that we're gonna give them the proper guidance. So that's the first thing. Secondly, it's gotta be about feedback. What are the needs of our campuses, and what do our constituents say of the campus as well? So that's a big part of the cycle. And then our budget is due on March 7th, I believe. I remember that date. But our budgets are due on March 7th to our business office. In the meantime, I want to talk a little bit about these committee meetings, because I would say we've been doing budget workshops all year long, once a month with this finances and planning committee meeting. The difference is that in March, we're going to do a deeper dive into the workshop type of setup with our board, because we're going to start that process already. We've given you pieces of what that 25-26 fiscal planning is going to look like. We're just going to start doing a deeper dive and not have to schedule additional board workshops. But these committee meetings are going to take the place of that. So proud of the work that Ida has been leading and guiding in that department. Definitely, we're going to learn a lot. We're going to use it as a professional learning tool as well for our administrators, and just kind of setting the stage for what next year is going to look like fiscally. We're moving in the right direction, and so I'm confident that zero-based budgeting is going to work. The other big thing that we have on our agenda today is hearing from our financial advisors. Any questions for any of the information that Ida has presented to you today?
Well, just, first of all, love the calendar, love the thoughtfulness of your budget planning process and involving the principals and executive directors, senior team, et cetera. That's awesome. And I do love the calendar going forward. I think it's wise to now move away from the traditional sort of, okay, we're going to have the budget workshops in April, May, and June, we approve the budget. Well, we have now a venue and a strategy and a method for that. It's our monthly finance and planning meetings. And so now it's just sort of using that time that we have every month, and we're doing the work year round, a little bit more focused, in the sort of April through, March, April, May, June, time frame to really wrap up that budget. But really, it's something we're doing year round. And it's something that's now embedded in the organization to where you, senior team, executive directors, principals, are also doing it year round. Coloring within the lines, staying within budget, but then planning for the next year's budget year round. So I think that's brilliant. And then lastly, I will say, I hope that through that time period, especially the dark green box, speaking for one board member, but I'd love comments from my other board members as well, is I hope they can get us to a point where we can give a raise to our teachers and staff by the time we approve the budget at the end of that green box there and in June, because I think that's the goal, is to get us to a point where we can give our staff and our teachers a much deserved raise. I will remind, and I'm curious to the presentation that's going to follow us here, but I will remind everybody, that we have session coming up. There's been all indication that there's going to be a huge correction in public school finance, public school funding. There's other things coming like vouchers and different types of things that are going to also be at play. But I do think that we'll see a huge correction in state funding for public schools from our state leaders, and that will be very welcome, and it will help this process as well. So anyway, I'd be curious to see if other board members have any, but I think this is a wonderful plan.
I would echo that, everything you just said, and I'm just so happy to see a timeline that we're gonna be able to get information and have time to digest and provide feedback and have conversation. I think that will lend itself to us being just much more strategic and to be able to plan and do some of the things like Dr. Bettis mentioned, that we really do want to do, and not, just approve the budget.
Just rush through it, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, so thank you for
time.
this, I'm really looking forward to this cycle.
I'd like to add, I want to compliment you and your staff, Dr. Cortan, and digging into this in the last several months, going through and setting up this new system, to try to get everybody working together, and now everybody going through these budgets campus by campus, not just taking last year's budget and saying this is what we need, but really get into what people actually need and working on the district. It's very important that I think everybody should know, the public should know that the top priority of this board, Dr. Pettis mentioned it a few minutes ago, is to ensure that our employees get a raise next year. That is the top priority. And honestly, one of the main reasons that we formed this finance committee is to ensure that purpose every year. Because we want to make sure that we do that, and we will deliver that this year. There will be a raise this year. And so I want everybody to know that. And again, I'm so proud of you and your staff, Dr. Corton, the board for working together, and different departments, Deb, your department, Oscar, your department, everybody pulling together to get this budget. We're on the right track. We've made adjustments. The plan is working, and we're going to be there this year. So thank you again.
Great job, Heidi.
Thank you, Junior.
So I'm gonna have our tech team queue up the next presentation, and it's time for our financial advisors to join us, so come on up, glad you all are here. We're gonna hand out copies, hard copies of our presentation for this meeting.
Well, good evening. My name is Noe Hinojosa with the Strino Hosting Company. I serve as CEO of the firm, and with me is Dr. Miguel de los Santos, colleague of mine for, I won't say how many years, but at least 29. Now thereabouts. And Dr. Angel Magallanes, who joined us about 3 years ago. Feels like 10, but I think maybe 3. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come before you. This are the task at hand was on how to go about financing about $18 million worth of needs, I guess personal property financing needs for the school district, and we have a plan that I think you would like. As a matter of practice, what we like to do is kind of give you an overview from macro perspective as to what debt the district has. So we pretty much have given you a presentation that's pretty comprehensive, and basically you got 3 different credits. 2 of those credits are paid by your operating budget. So the first credit is what we call an unlimited tax general obligation bond. And those bonds, when sold, they're sold based on the fact that the voters gave you the authority to go and borrow that money. So today, the school district has about shy of $80 million, by about 60,000 bucks of debt outstanding to 3 bond issues. One was sold in 15, and then in 2020 and in 21. Now, those bonds were refinanced, so the original amounts were probably sold prior to that, okay? Now, there is a third party out there called the rating agencies. Moody's, as a matter of fact, rates you all as a AA3. And what that means, anytime that a municipal entity, vis-a-vis whether it's a city or a county or a school district, you're graded based on some financial metrics by these rating agencies. And the investors who buy your bonds or lend you the money base their interest rate based on market conditions at the time and based on what they believe your credit to be. So like if you were to go to a local bank and you show them your income statement, knowing Dr. Perez, probably his income statement is a lot more heftier than mine, so his rating is going to be a lot better than mine. And well, the same thing applies to school districts. In this particular case, anything that Harlingen ISD does is guaranteed by the state of Texas also through the Permanent School Fund. So you end up with a AAA rating, but the investor today is a little bit more cynical, and if they see that the underlying rating is lower than AAA, they're going to nick you for a little bit more in the interest cost. So it is important anytime that we bring a client to the market that those ratings be preserved. So as it is today, you'll find the bars below, those are your annual payments. So think about you having 3 homes and you got 3 loans on those homes and you're paying them over a period of time. So very likely the 15 bonds are either going to be paid off pretty rapidly by 2030, and then the rest of the other bonds in 2021 go all the way out to 41. So what's important for you is to know that in 2030, your payments dropped pretty significantly. Now that's one credit. On the other side of the credit, in your operating budget, you have 2 loans, or 3 loans actually. You have a personal, I guess you have a public finance corporation, and there, that's on page 4. Somebody move that? Is that going too fast? No. So this entity is created and paid by an appropriation from this board to this corporation. That is sort of a shadow corporation. The board, I suspect, is the same, are the same members of this board. So it's basically an appropriation financing. And instead of you having a AA3 credit, you actually have an A1 or A+. So give you an idea, the United States government not long ago had a AAA rating. That's the highest rating you can have. Then below that, you have a AA credit rating. And within that space of AA credit ratings, you got 3 categories: AA1, AA2, AA3. You're a AA3. Today, I think Moody's rates the United States government's debt at about a AA2. AA1 has been downgraded over the last 10 years or so, since the mortgage crisis. And then we have another rater for these bonds, the bonds on the PFC, the bonds that we anticipate to sell for you, maintenance tax notes, are rated an A1 by Moody's and an A+, I believe, by Standard & Poor's. So on page 3, you'll find that you have 1 loan, about $4.3 million, and those were issued in 18. And what we do for the benefit of your staff, we basically combine all those 3 loans, the 2 PFCs and the maintenance tax note loans, into 1 payment. And you're going to see that payment on page 6. Combined, you're paying about $3.1 million. The second column from left to right, that's what you currently are making payments from your general fund budget. So when you look at your operating budget, finance staff makes an appropriation, makes a budget of $3.135 million. So anything that you borrow through a maintenance tax note, it's gonna impact that payment. So the question was from staff, when can we go borrow $18 million? And we're gonna, basically, if you go back to page five, there's an interest for borrowing about $1.3 billion for aquatic center decorative unit replacements, about $6.6 million for HVAC upgrades, the school painting projects about $400,000, re-roofing projects about $3.45 million, parking lot repairs of about $750,000, fire alarm about $1 million, safety fencing, car swipes, cameras $2.5 million, plumbing line repairs about $1 million, and sports fields relighting projects about $1 million. All combined is about $18 million. So if we're to come to the market, what would $18 million cost us? And the objective here is to go out over with a financing that maybe has the last maturity in 2040. You can do it two ways. You can go with level annual payments as reflected on page 6 on the second column from right to left. To borrow $18 million today, you probably pay about $1.6 million a year. That $1.6 million, when added to the $3.1 million, makes your payment $4.7 million. So when you look at your operating budget, you're going to have now $4.7 million payment versus the $3.1 million. Another way to soften the impact on the general fund budget is by taking an approach like on page 7, where instead of making the payments level, you would make the payments lower on principal the first 3 years, so that instead of making a payment of $3.1 million, you're more like at a $4 million payment. And then you catch it back up in 2027, where basically it goes up to about $4 million. Or it stays at $4 million for 3 years, and then it drops to $3 million for 4. And what that does, because of the fact that we're looking for ways of minimizing impact on general fund operation costs, this is one way to entertain another way of financing it. So the question was, okay, when can we go to the market, and when can we get this deals closed so we can go ahead and make the improvements? On page 8, you'll find today we're coming to you with the presentation. We will call the rating agencies on or about the week of the 27th, and we think that about a month from now, on the 24th, we can sell this note and close on or about March 24th. That's on page 8. And I'll stop for right now if you have any questions regarding the financing or the items to refinance. So
this 18 million,
yes, sir.
is just added already on top of what we have with the PFC, the other three that you mentioned, right? So it's all one package, right?
Yes.
And you're just adding these new monies of 18 million to that, is that correct?
That is correct. So you have about $12 million outstanding on between the PFCs and the notes, $2 million in change, and you'll be adding another 18.
And that interest rate, you think is
Sustainable? Well, you know, we have a new administration coming in, third week of January.
You also mentioned a little bit about credit rating.
Yes.
Are we going to get a little credit rating hit based on our drop in fund balance that you just had?
Excellent question. So interest rates are a function of market conditions and your credit rating. So talking about market conditions, there's an announcement today that the Fed will probably not going to lower rates until July. I'm actually more skeptical over the fact that I think the economy is in a little bit of a lull, and thus it may take a little longer to see rates drop. But notwithstanding that, I'll give you an example. Today, we represent the city of Dallas, and we sold about $36 million worth of bonds out 9 years. You're going out 15 years, and we got a 307, and we had about 18 bidders. So What that means is that there's a lot of liquidity out there, a lot of people willing to invest in municipal bonds. So hopefully we'll get a lot of bids when we go out to the market and get a good rate for you. We are using a 380. I think it's pretty fair, a 380, but that's on an A1 basis. Your credit rating may be affected over the fact that over the last 2 years you've had a real impact on your savings account. So, or your fund balance. So when the rating agencies give you an opinion of what you're worth as a credit, they look at your general economy factors, they look at your ADA enrollments, how TEA funds you, how the federal government funds you, what you do at the local level in terms of your property taxes and so on and so forth. So they look at your finances too, very closely. And today now more than ever, in lieu of the fact that we are now seeing a lot of actual dot events, global warming is causing more hurricanes, it's impacting communities out there a lot more. The savings account play a bigger role. And, excuse me, and over the last 2 years, you went from a $45 million, $48 million fund balance to about $17 million. So we think that's going to adversely impact your ratings there. And I think it could be an A1 to an A3. If it does, there are other tools that we can use, such as purchasing bond insurance. We pay a one-time premium, and that elevates you automatically to a double A. So there's a lot of hurdles that we got to overcome in the next 30 days, which is one of the reasons why I'm moving the sale out to a February bond sale. We have an audit that just was released in December. It looked pretty decent. You know, you do have $17 million there reflected in that independent audit report. Spoken to Ida and Superintendent and Julio Cavazos, and this year you're performing pretty decent, and thus I suspect that we should not be lower than A3, but hopefully we can try to push our way for an A2. Please.
So what is the bond premium cost if you try to buy that insurance?
You know, it's kind of funny. When you do a PSF financing, it costs you $350, I think. I don't know if they raised the price on that or not. And that gets you to a AAA. When you get a bond insurance, the bond insurance premium is literally the delta, the difference that you will pay for an A3 rating bond versus their AA credit. So if a AA credit gets you a 315, to say a number, like Dallas. Dallas with a 307, you're going a little longer. So you're going to be, instead of a 307, you're probably going to be a 325. That's a AA credit insured. If you go with an A2 or A3 for that matter, the fact that you got downgraded, the investor tries to take advantage of that. So that it may be at 380 or 375. The delta, that 50, 65 basis points, they're going to literally hit you with a premium right in the middle, 30 basis points. So 30 basis points from $18 million could be a $500,000 hit, but it's a one-time hit. You're still getting the benefit of the differential of interest costs. We're not going to get you the insurance premium unless it's benefit for you. And there are two providers in the world that give you this credit enhancement, only two, FSA and BAM. So we would do, we will call them up, we'll send them the offering documents to their New York offices. They'll hopefully qualify us for insurance, and we're set.
So if we've already improved our fund balance from the date our audit closed out, from 17.9, 19.2, something like that.
17.7.
And will they take that into consideration, or do they only look at the formal audit report?
They're going to take everything into consideration. One of the things that could be seen as concerning is the fact that you went on a real fast trend to depleting those resources. And they do trust you in that. I think, as the superintendent mentioned, you have turned the corner, you're on the right track. But then we haven't finished the fiscal year, which ends on June 30th. And you're exposed to elements. Granted, hurricane season is behind us, but we don't know anymore when something like that can happen. And we're concerned from time to time that those unforeseen circumstances can hit you from one day to the next, right? And that could have an impact on your fund balance. So from their perspective, they want to have you stop the trend from going from a $47 million position to a $70 million position. So it's kind of like they trust you, but they're going to verify, right? So you're going to have the next 2 or 3 years a pretty trying season in terms of restoring that credit position that you've had.
Does our past history help? Because, you know, we had a solid.
It helps the fact that, I'll give you an example. Muni bonds, since the Depression, have only defaulted 1/4 of 1% over all the bonds that have been issued in this country. So there's no doubt that this school district is ever going to default. It's never going to default. We're always going to make our payments. But it's all about assessing risk. If you're the investor, and let's say you are Austin ISD, Austin ISD has a AA credit, and you have a big portfolio of investments, and you're putting your money in this bucket of school district debt, some of them are going to say, well, I'd rather put the money in Harlingen ISD. It's got a lower rating, has a higher yield, right? Because of your risk position versus an Austin. So it's a question of how you go to the market. That goes back to the market conditions, goes back to your credit quality. So when you say, are all the factors considered? All the factors are considered. But at the end of the day, you've got to fulfill certain credit metrics. And today more than ever, they're more objective than subjective. So when they look at you, they look at financial performance, they look at stability of the administration, they look at the general economy, unemployment, they look at the fact that vouchers may be a competitive factor for you, they look at charter schools, they look at your ADA. Your ADA in 24 dropped significantly. I was looking from a macro standpoint, and you can find this on the back of this presentation. There is a section that deals with, there's a table 11 on the back. It's a summary of your income statement report. And basically, it's like on the back.
That's the one that says change in debt position.
2 pages prior, it says table 11 is the general fund revenues and expenditures history. Further down.
Down.
A little further down. It's up on page 23 or 24.
I think it's the third to the last of this, actually. Third to the last.
The next one. That one. Can you all see it? All right. So basically here, I look at the bottom line. Your bottom line is your savings account. 2022, fiscal year ended, $48.3 million. That was your savings account. In 2024, June 30th, it was 17.74. So you had about a $7 million and change hit in 23, and about $23 million hit in 24. Stop right there, but basically if I'm lending you money, I'm a bit concerned. You are in the process of working on your budget. We're going to work very diligently with Dr. Cordon and her staff to make sure that, we are, on top of it. I think that this year, in the 25 year, we suspect, despite the fact that I've been given a number from Ida and Dr. Cordon, that you're being conservative and I think you're going to perform very well this year. But to make up 30 it's gonna be hard. There was a question earlier, offline that, how fast can we recover? I mean, this could be a 3 to 5 year process. And just think about it. Your operating budget, your expenses in 24 were $209 million. You were at 181 in 2022. If you look at the ADA, I was looking at some rough numbers. Your ADA in 2020 was 17,577 students. You were spending an average of about $10,700. In 24, you had 2,400 less students, about 15,134, and you spent $209 million at 13.8 thousand per student. So just between 24 and 23, you had a 21% increase in expenses. So what we have to do is, what is the real number to spend on a kid's education? And I think when you look at the trend per kid in 2020, you spent 10,700, 10,800 in 2021, 11,600 in 22, 11,400 in 23, and then you went to 13,800. And now, and we're gonna work with Dr. Gordon to tell her exactly what categories really came out. And one of them were instructional costs, about $11 million in change.
Yeah, that was 100%. That was a huge, part of that 23 million of this last year was personnel and consultants, et cetera. I would love for you to, and I know you and I have talked about this already, but obviously I think that going forward, this committee, as part of this committee, should be meeting with our financial advisors at least quarterly to have these types of, big picture discussions and things like that. And just briefly, I'd like to get back to your presentation. I would love for you to sit down in the next conversation with our operational leaders and Dr. Katana and her team, and discuss, without getting into specifics here, our short, medium, and long-term plans to basically really fix both sides of revenue and expenditures, because she can go into some great details there that I think will impress you. And of course, and this also comes at a time when, hopefully, God willing, and we've talked to our state leaders, and they very much have indicated that there's going to be a huge correction in public school funding. So that should help, right? But there's other things that we need to do as far as short, medium, and long-term planning that are really going to make a huge difference here in terms of making that correction in the budget.
Let me give you an example. I know you're very optimistic about the state funding, and I've been in this business now 36, 37 years, and something has to be done. But today, if you brought in $181 million in 24, you're getting $140 million from the state. We rely a lot on the state. So going back to your question regarding, will the rating agencies look at your past? Of course they do. But they also look at the present and the unwillingness from the state leaders to give more for you, to give you more support. And more, rating agencies are becoming more reluctant about your inability to do what very commonly we do with cities and counties, even airports for that matter, where we do 5-year forecasting. Like City of Dallas, I have a 5-year forecast there. I can't do that here because every 2 years you are given a little call from the state saying, hey, here's what we approve for the biennium. And sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. And then your ADA is fluctuating. So we're going to be optimistic, but we also, I guess we're going to be cautiously optimistic that we can come up with a plan, but it's going to take us a while.
So on one hand, public schools are in a good situation. We have a lot of different funding sources. The problem is it's too big of a chunk of that's from the state. In a state where the environment has been not supportive and underfunding of public schools. On the other hand, you have things like counties that they cry all about this all the time. They only have one source of funds. That would be property taxes. That's it. They don't have diversification of funds like we do. The problem is, the good side, they're predictable. They know what they're gonna be, and they know they're always gonna get those things, so they can manage and balance that budget more predictably.
And so 80% of your budget, close to 80%, is coming from Big Brother up in Austin. And you know, the funny thing is, as you and I know, the state is doing really well. I mean, we have another big surplus, but they're tight. But in any event.
Mr. John, did I hear you say earlier that when school districts go to bond, that they get that PSF guarantee, they get the benefit of that, and it's upgraded to a AAA because of that. But we'd still be hit with a rating, with an interest rate penalty because of the dings. So what's the point of having the guarantee if we don't enjoy the AAA?
Well, excellent question, except that the AAA is only given to you when the voters approve a financing.
Okay.
This financing is not approved by the voters because it's for repairs of equipment or buildings, roofs, and things like that. So there are certain differences, certain authorities given to school districts to make those kind of repairs through maintenance tax notes. So tax notes do not qualify for PSF.
They're not receiving the benefit.
So you're gonna go straight on your own to the dance floor, and hopefully somebody will dance with you.
The best time to borrow money is when you don't need it.
That's right.
That's why we gotta protect our credit, yeah. So I guess for now, what we were looking is some sort of consent that we can proceed and go forward to hopefully bring you something in February with a bond sale.
So that would be the timeline, is
Yeah,
our regular board meeting in February?
if that works with you, Dr. Vidal?
Yes, it does, and we've looked at all of our data, I'm good with that. That's a perfect time.
I like marrying up the payments with the way that you did it on the second scenario. It'd be interesting to look at a 10-year payback too, to see what difference that is.
10-year?
Just did both scenarios, 10
Sure.
and 15.
I think it's nice keeping that at 4.7, it's a big jump, you know, but that second example, you kind of like lower those years.
Yeah, we could do, you know, maybe instead of going out 15, we can go 12. Trying to negotiate with you a little bit because we need a little bit of breathing room, and then postpone or defer principal in the first 3 years so we can wrap around. Ida, does that work for you?
Their schedule.
So maybe look at 12 and 15, but where we mitigate with the first 3 years in terms of the
Yeah.
interest.
Yeah, we'll share that with the staff and then take it pass it on to you. You just give us some guidance on that.
And earlier this week, when we had our call, what was it, just yesterday, it seems like it was.
Seems like a week ago. Was it that long of a call?
Yes,
Sorry.
I know.
3 hours ago.
Well, I take that
Right
personally.
before the meeting, no. But I will say, just your intentional questioning and framing it, super helpful. Because, you know, I do think that working alongside you all, we're gonna be able to look at that 3 to 5 year plan and get us back to where we wanna be. So just thank you for the time, because it was super helpful for us.
Well, thanks for your trust. We'll come back hopefully with some good results, and let's get to work. Thank you very much.
Great job, thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that, do we have anything else, Mr. Powers, or can we adjourn the meeting?
I think that's it.
All right, well, meeting adjourned, thank you guys very much.